Hi, I'm Yvonne Villarreal. I cover TV for LA Times. Thanks so much for joining us. So we have executive producer and writer Terence here. And stars Dana Delany, Jay Will, and Neal McDonough. They're in the audience. Yeah. Did you guys notice you had them watching with you?
Good to see you. How you doing, man? Good to see you. How are you?
Yes. Before we officially get into it, Neal and Jay, how was it to watch it with the audience?
Hey, man.
It was, I generally never watch anything that I'm in. It's been a very long time, unless I have to watch something. Like Reve and I are producing our own films now. If I have to watch it, then I have to. But I haven't seen anything that I've been in probably a decade. So to sit here and watch myself is just really kind of odd. But man, to go toe-to-toe with Stallone looks so much fun.
It was one of the greatest times I've ever had. You know, when you have the opportunity to work with someone like Sylvester Stallone, who, you know, creates the Rocky franchise, the Creed franchise, for the Expendables, just so much that he's done in his career, you know, and to be in that with him and to act opposite with him, a guy who's so prepared, so ready to rumble, and it was just such a blessing for me this year to be part of this whole family that they invited me into, and I'm just so blessed and thankful for all of it. So thank you.
Well, we'll get deeper into that in a bit, but you know, the first season really set the stage for introducing us to Sylvester Stallone's character, Dwight, who's, you know, this New York Italian mob boss, not boss, but mobster from New York, who's sort of sent by his superiors to set up business in Tulsa after a 25-year stint in prison. And season 2, you know, we're heading in there with him coming out of prison, after being arrested, for a second time. And he's still trying to grow his business. What interested you about where you wanted to take the world building in season 2?
Well, we had already set the table during season 1 where we met all these characters. You know, there's a lot of, you know, it's sort of like if you're building a house, all the pipes have been laid now, you know who everybody is. The real gift about doing a season 2 is now you really get to know those people and how they interact with each other. So for me, season 2 is all about characters. And then the fun comes where you go, okay, well, what do we start mixing and matching people? You know, we have, you know, Jay Will or, you know, Tyson with Max Casella's character Armin. That's magic. Or you put, you know, Martin Starr in a scene, you know, with somebody, with Sly. That's always gold. So you just have more, you know, it's not introducing who they are, but more just expanding on where they've been together and where that goes in the future. You know, romantically, without giving anything away, you get to know more about them that way. So it's really, you know, really a pleasure to now to expand on the characters we already knew, and that's really what I was more interested in doing than anything this year.
Yeah. So you are introducing characters, and you've added Neal this season as Cal Thresher, this powerful and extremely territorial businessman.
Misunderstood.
Not to talk about Neal like he's not here, but when you are casting somebody that has to go toe-to-toe with someone like Stallone, you need someone with a level of gravitas.
Absolutely.
Talk about the energy that you wanted from a character like Cal and what Neal brought to that.
Well, exactly. You know, Neal hit on it. You need somebody to be able to stand across from somebody like Sylvester Stallone and not feel like they are shrinking. I've seen this happen. You know, I worked, you know, for a long time, you know, with Jim Gandolfini. And you have an actor come in and stand, you know, in the room when they're auditioning. You go, wow, this guy's great. And then you get them up looking in the eyes of an actor like that, and you can feel the energy go out, and they shrink, these big, powerful people. Neal, I've been a fan of since I think you got on my radar around Band of Brothers. And, you know, as soon as his name came up, we were like, absolutely. That was not a concern for any of us.
It's a great show.
That he could do that. And it's funny, and I said this the other day, and I said, yeah, he's got those really unbelievably intense blue eyes. And I go, yeah, you just see him with Stallone, and there's just no fear, there's nothing. And somebody said, you know, he doesn't blink. That's the deal. And I think that's exactly right. That's it. I didn't know what it was, but like, he just zeroes in with those laser beams, and you're like, holy shit, this guy is not, there's not an ounce of intimidation, you know, which we knew. So that's what you look for, you know, hopefully, you know, unless the role calls for somebody to to shrink, and we've got some of those characters too, like our poor guy who plays the car dealer.
Right.
Doesn't have nearly as much.
Well, Neal, to get back into it, I mean, you've played imposing characters before, but it is Stallone. How do you get into the zone for that? I mean, how intimidating was it? Because your first scene, you are challenging him.
All right, so the first scene, this is one of my favorite scenes I've ever done. And first of all, to work with the words, from Terence Winters is like, I mean, you as an actor, you pray, and Dana will attest to it. If you get the opportunity to work with those kinds of words, you really, it's hard to fail. I mean, it really is. You just come to set and you're loaded up and ready to go. But that scene that we saw tonight, Reve was there, and we hadn't even met Sly. It was over a Zoom. And as he came in, it was a quick hello, and then straight into the scene, and Dana and I started the scene and how it went on. So we do the first take. And the first take, I decide I'm going to get into Sly Stallone's grill. So I decide I'm going to make fun of him, and I'm grabbing my stuff, and I'm getting in his face. And all of a sudden, I see Sly's veins start to pop on his neck. I'm like, oh, I got him. This is good. I'm pissing him off. This is fantastic. I want to get under his skin. I want to do it. So we finish the take, and the camera's on him, and I go back to Reve because she was sitting there. I'm like, honey, how was it? And she's like, you can't do that to Sylvester Stallone. You're going to get fired. And all of a sudden, around the corner, here comes Sly, and he looks at me and goes, you got a set of balls.
He gave me the biggest hug, and he said, welcome to the show. We're going to have an awesome year. And I had the greatest year. It was awesome. It was great.
That's what's up.
Dana, did that dynamic get you wondering where Margaret falls into all of this? There's so much mystery to that character, and clearly there's something going on in that trio. Talk a little bit about that.
I still don't know what's going on. We don't know ahead of time because nobody tells us. So,
Sometimes we don't know.
yeah. So I just made up a lot of stuff in my head about what was going on is what I did. So,
What did you come up with?
I can't, that's my secret. But some of it paid off. Some of it came real. Some of it was like off in left field. So, you just have to use your imagination.
I want to get back a little bit to the Stallone of it all. Jay, I mean, your first interaction with him was much more relaxed, at least on screen. What do you remember about that sort of first time for you, and how has it developed since then, heading into season 2?
Yeah, it was my first role in a way, from down south, and I got off the plane onto set. My first day on set was the big scene at the airport, and I'm a little nervous. I'm like, okay, this is that guy that everybody talks about. So we got right into it, and as soon as I got into it with him, we just tried a couple variations. But by the third, it was almost as if we were just kids in a playground building a castle, man. So time went on, the familiarity began to grow more fond, and to hear now, it's like, it's almost familial, and the work that we come up with, the things that we come up with in the process always goes back to the creative childlikeness and the playfulness aspect of it all. So, shout out to him for even giving me leeway to create my own remixes and with the writing and even with some of the stage directions, just do my own thing. Give me the confidence to do that in the first place. So
You guys had that from the word. I literally was just back in the green room talking about the first time you came in to read. First audition, talk about balls. You had not done a lot. You were pretty fresh out of Juilliard.
fresh out
right?
of school, yeah.
And this guy walks in and meets Sly, and just like, he's been doing this for 30 years, and you guys did a couple of scenes together and ad-libbed, and he threw a bunch of stuff at you.
Yeah.
And you walked down, I don't even know if you knew, and Sly just went, oh my God, this guy, this is it. That was easy.
Yeah.
Done. And it was like you had done it 100 times. And so, you guys had just the chemistry right out of the gate. And then again, Sly loves to ad-lib, and you know what you're doing in the scene. You have a script, obviously, but then within that, sometimes that's where the gold is. You guys start playing around and just riffing, and that's some of the best stuff on the show.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
I think too that it's different working with. coming into a show, you guys, this is your second season, my first season with the show. So to come in and the lead actor or actress can sometimes be a bit offish, can mail in their performances, not be prepared, not be ready, and it can be really odd. So then, like Dana said, you're living in your imagination, creating things because you may not be getting it back from that other actor.
Right.
Then there's Sly Stallone, who comes in with his whole bag of tricks. And I say it, he knows your lines, my lines, he knows everything that's going on. He's so prepared to win. The guy's in his 70s. He's shredded. He's ready to play. His family's always around. It was just it's so easy to play with someone like Sly on set because, he just wants to win. He wants to make it the best environment possible. And, speaking for everyone here, I was so blessed to be part of it this year. So thank you.
One of the most humiliating days, I was in his trailer and he took his shirt off. And, he's like 18 years older than me. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, I got to work out. I have to do something. But I go, and then he goes, he Sly Stallone. He gets it's like that's making me try to feel better.
You're sitting there at craft service and he walks by and you're grabbing a donut. No, I wasn't going to eat that.
Sly, I wasn't going to touch that.
Yeah.
Well, you need that, Neal. You're going to go fat. No, I'm not going to eat that.
Is there a lot of Stallone impressions on set?
To his face.
Dana?
That's why Reve almost killed me when I did it to his face.
No, he encourages it. Like everybody's saying, the most shocking thing about working with Sly is how much fun he is. It's surprising. He enjoys just play, like you said. It's
Self-deprecating.
Yes. I mean, we were doing a scene in a restaurant, and again, a lot of improvisation. And he said to me, "How you doing?" I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Do that. Yeah, make fun of me. Do that." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, I want you to." I mean, she's cool. He knows people do it.
How does the vibe feel on set on something like this versus something like Desperate Housewives?
Oh,
That wasn't intended to be controversial, but I guess
no. I mean, it's interesting hearing this, and Terry, you know this. Every show is completely different. It has its own tone, and you got to go with that. And on Desperate Housewives, maybe because it was a specific type of comedy, every comma had to be there. You could not change anything. And so it's fine. Neal was on it with me. He knows. And there's a good challenge in that, too, to do that. But I prefer this, where we just play and have fun and see what happens. And so very different in that sense.
I want to talk about the tone of the show. The way it mixes comedy and drama is so interesting and unexpected. And I believe Paramount even branded it as a comedy. I don't know if I have that right. But talk a little bit about striking the right balance of a mob show and giving it that sort of, flair, which you've done before in ways.
Yeah, it's hard. For awards consideration, you have to decide whether or not your show is a comedy or a drama, and sometimes it's not possible to call it. I remember years ago I was asked to do some judging for the Emmys, and it was the season where on Sex and the City where Samantha had cancer. And that's a comedy, and every episode they watched, it ended with us crying watching it and say, this isn't funny. So how do you it should be, I think, ideally 30 minutes or an hour, and then you decide what it is. In terms of writing it, the comedy for this isn't written like setup and punchline. The comedy comes from character. It comes from taking a guy like Stallone, who's a New York mob guy, and dropping him into Tulsa and just let him go. You don't have to write jokes. Or take a guy like that and watch him try to deal with somebody at the DMV. And it is going to be funny, or having a mob boss negotiate his way through Starbucks and just let it go. Again, no jokes, just behavior, and it's going to be funny. And then you just have to really trust that. And it's all there. Again, it's all situations, relationships, and it's just the natural, inherent comedy of life. So,
Terry, I have one question. When he goes and he brings his own personal espresso cup, whose idea is that, and where did that come from?
That came from one of my very talented writers named Dave Flabat. But yeah, he said he just wanted to feel like he was home. And
isn't that a great bit?
He got out of jail, and they don't have coffee. First of all, costs $5. He went to jail 25 years ago. Coffee's $25. They don't have glass cups anymore. Little things like that. How the world has changed. You find the comedy and stuff like that. So what Neal's referring to is he shows up and he just brings his own little glass espresso cup to the store.
Well, another detail that I love that I know I shouldn't have been surprised by it because it tracks, but I didn't know how much I was deprived of never hearing Sylvester Stallone quote Ralph Waldo Emerson. Talk about that detail.
That's one of the things about Sly. When we first started doing this, when I first met him, I had known about him before I knew how smart he was and how well read. He when he read my version of this pilot, he said, "This fits me like a tailor-made suit." He said, "This is who I am if I were a mobster." The other thing we talked about, I said, this is a guy who's been in jail for 25 years, and I've known a lot of guys in real life who have done that, and they're incredibly well-read. They'll read the phone book. So they will come out with things, and they sound like thugs, but they will come out with things that you can't believe they know. Shakespeare, Emerson, some of them are legal scholars that are just jailhouse lawyers. So he spent 25 years reading and working out, which is why he looks like Sylvester Stallone and he's so smart. But the real guy is really very much like that. He's incredibly, again, very well read, very funny, very self-deprecating. And he said this is going to be so much fun for people because I've met people who can't believe I can actually speak. They can't believe I can put a sentence together, let alone do a monologue. And I think that's blown a lot of people's minds about that, oh, wow, he's funny. And, we have things later in the year where you got, pages of dialogue from him that, won't give it away. But, he goes off on a couple of big runs and you go, wow, that's more than Rambo has ever said in 17 movies.
One of the fun moments from this episode is, we get to see Tyson, who's already a well-dressed person, put on a suit and really step into that, the energy of the world he's in right now. Jay, how was that to sort of, level up in that way?
It's crazy because I was Sly got a real personal connection with suits, so it was it's something real personal, and the closer I got to him, the more that was revealed. So he was giving me tips on different type of loafers, a different type of furs, a different type of breastednesses and stuff, and I'm like, yo, this is beyond me. So once I started to allow myself to get into that side of my own self, it was up from there. I mean, he gave me a lot of personal tips, and the greatest one is to consider like armor. I've never just considered a suit like a knight in armor would. So it was good. It gave me a whole new perspective with also two colors and how colors influenced the trajectory of the story for Tyson, and how he was lighter energetically in the beginning and how things evolve tonally.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tulsa King was created by Taylor Sheridan, who wrote the pilot. You were brought on in the first season as showrunner. You left after the first season for what was reported as creative differences. And then you were brought back as executive producer and writer. What can you share about why you left and what brought you back?
I love the show so much. I was thrilled to come back. Just creatively, it wasn't something I created, so I didn't have 100% ownership of it. I had some ideas. Taylor had his ideas too, and by the end of it, I guess, in terms of where my direction wanted to go, didn't comport. And then, then we saw what we had. And I think probably the fact that he's also got 19 other shows happening, he's like, you know what? Actually, why don't we just do what this is, and I don't have to guard it with where I would have gone. And I was like, great. So we continued, and I couldn't have been happier. It was great.
Did he feel the need to weigh in on where you wanted to take season 2?
Not really. Otherwise, that's the thing. I don't think he was really sure yet. But I think partly, and I totally am making this up, I think he may have regretted giving it away. I think he probably saw how much fun we were having and said, wow, I want to do that too. Mm-hmm. But he had already, when I came on, he's like, here, take it and run with it and go do your thing. And then, you're just like, oh, wow, I gave away my favorite toy or one of them, So maybe, I'm making this up completely. That's what I do.
That's what we do here. Yeah. You talked a little bit about the collaboration with Stallone. He's credited as a writer. Can you expand a little bit more about what that collaboration looks like? How much is he involved in the scripts?
Well, as Neal said, he's involved in everything. You don't just get an actor with this guy. You get a screenwriter, you get a director, you get a producer, you get an editor, you get a music supervisor, a wardrobe consultant, everything. So the writing collaboration is we speak every day during the process. And when we speak, I mean FaceTime. He's a big FaceTimer. He doesn't like to just call. So you'll get at
You always
6 in
gotta
the
be
morning.
ready.
Yeah, you got. I was telling somebody the other day. He FaceTimed me. I was in CVS, and the guy next to me. I see him. He hears that voice, and this can only happen in L.A. where he's like, Sylvester Stallone. I was like, he said, sorry, I'm gonna take you off speaker. It's a lot of just talking, and then he'll write and send me. He writes in cursive. Thank you. And then the challenge is to decipher what he's writing. So we have a couple hieroglyphic experts who come in, and Jen, a woman named Jennifer who works with us, is really good at reading, sort of deciphering what's up. But even occasionally she'll transcribe it, and it's not even close to what he did. But eventually, when we get what he intended, then we can further the conversation. But he has a million ideas. I mean, again, even. As Neal said, he's at the point in his career and in the show to go, he could very easily just come in and say, give me the script, what do I say, where do I stand, punch the clock and go home. It never. I mean, it's always thinking about ideas, sending me articles, this would be really cool, why don't we try that, etc. And it's great.
Do you have him on silent because he texts so much?
Excuse me?
Do you have him on silent?
Right now? I can get him. I guarantee you, if I call him right now, he'll pick up on Facebook.
I put my mom on silent because I know it's constant. What was a big disagreement that you've had? And not in a bad way, but what did he feel strongly about that you either pushed back on or relented?
I think we've been really, I'm not really I swear I'm not trying to just not tell you. We've been on the same page with who this character was from the first meeting we ever had. I don't think there was ever anything that we didn't get on board with. He that's the other thing that's great about him. He's not protective. He doesn't try to make himself look good. There are actors who could very well go, always make me look cool. I always have to have the joke. I always have to be the tough guy. Not at all. We've had him, he's been emotional, with tears in his eyes, and he's not afraid of showing that range. He's not afraid of giving somebody else a line of dialogue. Actually, he'll give things to other people that I want him to keep. I said, I would so much rather you said that. And he said, you know what, let's give it to either Jay or somebody else, and let the group have some of that stuff.
What's great about this show is the fish out of water element, and with that comes the horses. Dana, we got to talk about the horses. What was that like, getting acclimated to that? I mean, Margaret's an equestrian and a ranch owner. You went to horse therapy, if I remember correctly. Talk a little bit about that. And then, Terence, weigh in about, you're familiar with the mob world, but learning how to write horses into the script, I think, is interesting.
Well, everyone knows now I'm not a horse person. And my whole life I've been cast as a horse person for some reason. It's my karma. The backstory, if you care, is that I went to camp. I was 8, and a horse rolled on me. And I called my parents, and I said, please don't make me get back on the horse. So I literally did not get back on the horse. So I've had this fear, but I keep playing horse people, and there must be something about getting over it. So when Terry hired me, I panicked, and I said, I got to go to horse therapy. So I went up to Malibu to Chloe Webb, who was on China Beach with me, who's now a horse therapist. And I had one session, and it was fantastic. It's very emotional. I recommend it if anybody has a fear of horses. You don't even get on the horse, but you and the horse just have this connection. And it really changed everything. So I said to Terry, you can put me back on the horse if you want.
I had even more limited experience with horses. I grew up in Brooklyn, where your exposure to animals are pigeons and stray dogs. So
scary.
I had a girlfriend who was a really accomplished equestrian, and I would do the kitty horse ride while she would, do around. That was it for me. So, and I watched Mr. Ed as a kid. Aside from that, that was it. So even when I came down to writing about, we're set on a horse farm, I just wouldn't even trust myself. We have an animal wrangler, and I would call, or even it was really ridiculous. I'd send him a picture of a horse and what is this? And he'd email me back, a horse. I go, no, is it a specific horse? Or, I just want to at least describe it correctly, or is it possible to have somebody do the thing I'm describing? And, so that's not my strong suit. So I try to avoid, a lot of that.
The thing about being on a show where the mob is involved is you got to be prepared to die at any point.
That is true.
Neal?
I'm still shocked I made the whole season. I am shocked.
I kept reading the script. I'm in 8. Yes. I'm in 9. Yes. Going through 10. Where do I die? Where do I die? Well, I'm not going to tell you what happens.
So many actors do that.
You're always-
They get the script. The first thing they do is turn to the last page and like, I made it.
I wondered, is that
They
something
like me.
you worry about, Jay? Is it something are you like, I'm good with him now. I'm good with Dwight now, but am I always going to be good with it?
I mean, yeah, it's always that floated thing that's there, but I guess if you have your purpose in the dynamic of it, you know, the lack of you would be a detriment to the situation. So
My thing.
stay intentional.
That holds true a lot of times, but sometimes it doesn't. No, it really
How do you
is.
think about it? I mean, you've done.
Terry,
you've
did you get that
killed-
Rolex I sent to you? You got that right?
No, I
You've
mean,
killed many characters before. How do you think about
even,
it?
You know, when you work with people and you have to say, like, this is a gangster show. There's guns everywhere, guys. Just there's bullets flying, and you never know somebody might catch shrapnel, or you might even catch a bullet that wasn't even meant for you. And you know, it happens. I mean, and sometimes for the story, you kill off a character that I didn't see that coming, and I've been in that situation too. It's really hard. It's the hardest thing, honestly, about my job is, you know, making that call to an actor and say, hey, you know, and usually when the showrunner does call you, it's not good. You don't want that call. Yeah, I've had actors say, I called one guy on Boardwalk Empire once, said, hey, it's Terry Winter. He went, well, I guess I'm dead. I said, well, you're not, but your character is. I said, you're fine.
I'm sure Dana's like, don't let it involve a horse, right?
That would be cruel. That would be cruel.
But come on, Terry. There's sometimes actors get killed off for other reasons.
Yeah, but I mean, it's, you know, it's mostly just creative. But again, you have that option. It's not like well, I guess on a medical show, unless you're a patient. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a gangster show. It's like you really got to be extra careful, I guess.
Well, before we wrap up, what are you comfortable teasing about what's ahead? Like, what won't make sense now, but will by the time we reach the end of this season?
I think there are a lot of moments within the course of the season that take our characters into places emotionally that they haven't been before. Again, you know, it's that expansion of who these people are. We there's a lot of personal growth. There's a lot of emotional growth. There's a lot of psychological growth. You know, they're met with challenges that kind of rock who they are at their core, and a lot of lines in the sand that may or may not be crossed. So again, it all comes back to the characters. And you know, I've been blessed to have this stable of incredibly talented actors who anything we throw at them, they're able to knock out of the park. And there are moments of incredible poignancy and humor and fear and all of that. So I'm really excited to see this play out and see how the audience reacts to it.
Has the fan fiction inspired any developments?
I wish I was that creative. I didn't even know about fan fiction. If any of you don't know what we're talking about, there are people out there who write fictionalized scenarios about the characters on not just this show, but movies and everything else. And I encourage you, if you get a glass of wine and sit down and maybe just read some of the incredible scenarios they come up with between our characters, that I wish I was that creative. But yeah, I have to go dig a little deeper. But a lot of them are maybe not suitable for a family audience.
True, they get a little spicy.
They get really, 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 again, and
yeah.
You know, the show with horses on it too. You don't even want to know. And not that I've read any of those, but I was afraid. Like, I don't want to. Maybe I should stop reading now.
This became a rated R panel. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and thanks for coming out on a Thursday.
Thank you, everybody.
guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.